Hello, everyone. Welcome with us in this journey with accessibility. The topic for today would be the accessibility in action, the practical steps for the compliant products. And today with us, you have myself, Andrei Roman, the principal architect, the head of solution cluster with the NX, the Anton Sinach, the product manager at NX, and also Olesa Poslavska, QA compliance lead at NX. All of us, we have plenty of the experience within accessibility, supporting our customers within this journey to make the accessible digital products. And yeah, guys, say hello.
Yeah, hello everybody.
Hi guys.
Right. Here you have also the QR codes. You can find us in the LinkedIn. Meanwhile, if you have any questions, please feel free to ask them in the comment section. Also, you can follow us in the LinkedIn, and once you have any additional questions or topics for the discussion, feel free to message us within these products. All right. In regards to the accessibility, in regards to the agenda we are going to pass through today together, about the accessibility and a little bit deep dive there, we'll get soon. The agenda for today's webinar would be the following. Why it matters for the accessibility, how it might gain your products with additional users, and why do we actually need to care about that. The success stories within the NX of the accessibility improvements, also the audit and the key steps of it, operational cycle, the most common WCAG cases, and implementation tips and tricks. We have the Q&A section in the end. Nevertheless, I will ask you to feel free and ask the comments during the presentation. If it will be possible, we will answer on demand. Otherwise, we will hold this whole discussion till the Q&A, and we will go through each of them afterwards. In regards to the accessibility and why we are here. So in reality, we might understand, all of us, that not for all and every person, it is easy to use the websites. And the accessibility topic of it brings the possibility for the users with the functional disabilities actually to freely use each and every aspect of functionality that you envision within your product. So then you have the successful and complete user journey. Talking about the accessibility and the regulation parts, it's mainly covered the public accessible websites. Nevertheless, even within the private products, if you would like to enter the new cohort of people that have the disabilities, it's important part to have the accessibility regulations onboarded. In general, the amount of the people who are having troubles of using all their functionalities from the user experience and the UI part, it's about at 15% of generally people who are using the internet. And taking a look on the exact issues that the people are having while using the website, the most of them are about the mobility, cognition, vision, hearing, and so on and so forth. Talking about the exact cases, for instance, the cognition part, and how you can see this within your public products is that might be the ability to focus on the areas, on the action links, on the images, and so on and so forth. Also to have the contrast text, so then it's visible and clearly readable for the people, as well as, for instance, the vision part. The interesting topic that within your laptops and different kind of the products, there is functionality like the voiceover, and meanwhile you're not able to see clearly all of the components within the website or the mobile application. You're capable to read these features and to hear them. So one of the important parts of the accessibility scenarios are actually to have the voiceover functionality. Hopefully, right now we already onboarded, at least on the high level, about the accessibility topic. I would like to move forward about the success cases we had within the implementation of the accessibility for our customers. And then we'll deep dive into the exact scenarios of the accessibility and making it happen within the products and the tips and tricks that we have right now together with my colleagues. These success stories. Meanwhile, we have wide landscape of the projects that we were involved implementing the accessibility. We've selected two of them. The one is within the Canada region for the mortgage platform. Another one is for the European region. The reason why both of them were selected is because one of them is covering the regulation of the Canada area. And these regulations are already for a long period of time, and the recent regulations that should start acting in Europe. This is the right side case study that you can read through. The important piece of them is also that within the Canada regulation, the Canada client that we have here as a success story, we were working without the independent vendor that does the audit itself. And we were working as a technical partner running the accessibility improvements within the product. These were both web and mobile applications. And within the right side case study, the European vehicle market product, there we are working together simultaneously with the audit vendor that does the compliancy audit for the accessibility. And alongside, we are doing the implementation and also the assessment by our own. The value that we are gaining by having the accessibility, and both of them are quite similar here and there, that we are reducing any possible problems with the legal part, the penalties, and also the damage for the reputation of the product. I think that this is the quite of the common cases that we have for all of the other projects that we were involved making and implementing the accessibility features. Meanwhile, these are the core. Talking about the toolset perspective and the usage of different levels of the accessibility automation, on both of the cases, we had the automation on multiple levels, starting with the code analysis, proceeding with the automation toolset, automation tests for the accessibility, and finalizing with the manual testing and also the mobile testing, both automated and the manual. An exact toolset that was used is like the SonarQube, Playwright accessibility tests, the accessibility, the assessment insights, and the much more extension for the browsers. Let me proceed to the next one, and starting with the discussion about the exact journey of the accessibility audit. Meanwhile, we as the NAX, we are acting as a trusted vendor or the technical team who are implementing the accessibility. We are also involved usually within the assessment to make the assessment for the accessibility. But we are proposing you also to have the support of the independent auditor who can make your due diligence in terms of the actual audit and having the compliance in place. The first step, which is really important, is to allocate the technical team, whether that would be the independent vendor or that would be the internal team. Then to find and to select the more suitable auditor based on your targets, whether the target is to have the actual compliance done or to have the technical framework in place in terms of the accessibility. Afterwards, it's really important to involve your technical team early on. So then you have good planning upfront, and also one of the approaches that we propose to do each time is to make the technical assessment upfront. We will discuss this later on in more details, but not only the accessibility audit is good to have in place, but also the assessment done by the technical team. The next step is usually the running the audit and running the planning with the technical team. Then the prioritization of the transparency for whole journey of the development and the planning, and also to plan the future support as well as the trainings for the team, and being sure that the new features are developed according to some accessibility standards.
Andrei, could you elaborate a bit about transparency?
Sure.
Why is it important?
Sure. Thank you so much. So meanwhile, we are trying to understand, okay, what is the scope of the accessibility? Even though we have clearly defined scope, we need to settle the boundaries in terms of the timelines. And within our practices, and probably, Anthony, you know much more than I do, it's really important to have these weekly reports, understanding where we are, and also understanding the targets and how we are, near to the targets that we settled for us. So first of all, the timelines boundaries for that, the scope preparation, prioritization, and having the weekly reports done in place. So then there is good understanding whether we are in time with our targets.
Yes, okay. Yeah, it makes complete sense because actually all this kind of project is difficult to track progress because it's hard to estimate the whole scope at the beginning.
Yeah, exactly right. And here, by the way, I'll pass the word to you so then you can deep dive into more details about that topic.
Yeah, thank you, Andrei. So here is the key steps that you will see as a specific flow and process of implementing accessibility. The first step is to understand what compliance level you would like to achieve, whether it's WCAG 2.1 A. Also, it's the question, the goal of the project, whether you would like to implement compliancy for getting a new market, a new cohort of customer, or whether you just need to be compliant according not to get fines. After understanding the goal and the compliance level, go into roadmap planning. Here, what probably need to be started with is to define key user journeys, key flows that should be focused on. So the most crucial part of the website also here should be considered whether it's only web accessibility or it should include mobile application. After that, there should be selection of the parties and vendor, whether there should be auditor who would be involved from UX, from technical part. Actually, like building high-level RASI metrics for different involvement stakeholders. If you go with auditor or even without it, there should be audit steps. So at the beginning to understand what is the current accessibility level, what are the key issues. For that, different tool set can be used, starting just from simple free tools or browser add-ons, or auditor can be involved who will provide the detailed report with specific findings. And after that, we have a cycle of implementation, validation, and release. And here, this cycle depends on the company culture and on the complexity, because on one of the cases we had a validation after release, so the functionality not functionality, but accessibility changes were released on production, and they were validated on production by auditor. And it worked fine as soon as there are a lot of accessibility changes relevant by adding alternative text to images, to buttons, so it will not break the functionality, the critical functionality. And in this case, we prioritize the faster development and possibility to see the changes as soon as possible for auditor. The next part is audit validation. So if there was auditor involved, they provided the report with findings, and they should validate this report with findings. Even working without auditor, there should be a step to understand what level of compliance we already achieved, how we improved, whether we fixed all the key issues on the specifically selected flow. And in the end, actually understand the compliance.
And then I'll have a question for you. So usually, having the several steps of environment validation, like the user acceptance testing environment or the staging environment before getting to the production, that's kind of the usual approach that I've seen in my experience. And you were saying that direct deployment to the production also might be the case. Is it because of the reason that usually the accessibility changes doesn't impact much functionality, and that's the rare scenario that there would be any breaking changes?
Yeah, I would follow here with Pareto rules, having that 80% of this as accessibility changes are mostly adding alternative text to images, to videos, specific adding accessibility text that will not break the crucial functionality. On the other hand, yes, there are a lot of changes on the, if you have component library and making changes on the component library, for example, for focus, the adding specific mechanism to show additional information, then yes, that changes that are complicated and they should be tested before putting into release. And for the changes, it makes sense to have validation and user acceptance or smoke testing before release. And also, so there are two dimensions. One dimension actually is the complexity of the changes, and another dimension the culture of the company, because many companies used to having validation and user acceptance tests for everything before releasing. And validation on production doesn't work for these companies.
Got it. Thank you. And by the way, so I think that the not the rare scenario is when this first audit step, we mainly name it let's say assessment, like the technical assessment for the accessibility is done, to have this preliminary blueprint where we are like the baseline stage, then making all of these iterations about the implementation, the validation, the release. And the involvement of the auditor is like the optional as a final stage to have the final accordance to the compliance, or even though going to the compliance without the auditor and maybe involvement of the auditor later on. Do you think it's like also the possible option here?
Yeah, it's completely possible option. It would start to reach the auditor, to plan with the auditor, to get the report from auditor. This takes time. All these steps takes time. And even with working with auditor, you will get different workflows in different time. So just prioritize first chunk of the workflow and get the findings from them and validation on them. So there are a lot of tools that help to find the key issues, and it completely makes sense to start with the tools to get the key issues, fix this bunch of issues. There will be a lot of issues that has little complexity, but a lot of repeatability. And doing this issue is something that can be done just before reaching auditor.
Got it. Thank you.
Yeah, and yeah, this the slide that shows the key issues, that key findings, and here you can see that top findings are relevant to missing alternative text, missing text for labels, missing description for links and buttons. One thing that is more complicated is low contrast text, which also includes probably the size of the text, so how the website can scale. So this is also the common issue, and this one may need involvement of the UX person and might need some redesign or change the element positions. But just adding contrast, it's also not something that will bring the crucial functionality.
By the way, here you have also things like the empty links or empty buttons. Probably there is low percentage of such because it's easy to add it, like to add at least something. But when you generally want to have the system accessible for everyone, you also need to check the content which is there, if it's informative, and it's bring the possibility for the users like that would use the voiceovers or similar tool set to understand what is within the image, what the button actually will do, and so on and so forth.
There are recommendations. There are a lot of documents and recommendations on accessibility from trainings or from WCAG recommendations, and it's also the balance, because if you have a site on different languages, then having all this text on different languages, it will take time to get all translation, all nice translation, and sometimes this translation will need additional efforts. So here, as we told at the very beginning, there should be set the clear goal and clear understanding why we are doing it. And based on that, there will be prioritization to make it technically simpler, or whether they provide a great descriptive text.
Got it.
Yeah, to validate the text, probably the best tool would be VoiceOver, as it will show whether even you can navigate this site using this alternative text.
Got it. Thank you. Right, now we're moving to the demo part, and Alessis.
Yes. So, hi everyone. Let's dive in. So, actually, what we will do today? Today, I want to show you just how quick and actually easy it is to run a basic accessibility check right from your browser. So I'll just share my screen and we'll show you a little bit. Just a second. So guys, can you see my screen?
Yes, ma'am.
Loading. And now.
Great. Okay, so I will tell a little bit intro about what I will do. So in general, when we talk about the true accessibility, the full picture involves a different combination of tool sets. So it could be a manual techniques and some a domain expertise, and also some automation tool set. So, but today we will start with free and actually one of the, we can say a powerful option that is built right into Chrome Lighthouse. It's easy to show you how it works, but in our practice we use not only just this one, we also have another tool sets automation, but for today it's much more easier to show you with this one. For this like a demo, I will use the most like a visited website in the world. It's like a bbc.com to show how Lighthouse like a work in practice. So as already you see, I already downloaded the bbc.com. And what I have done, so I opened the inspect section and I ran like the Chrome DevTools, and I ran actually Lighthouse. So as you see, like our accessibility is just like 84%. So how it works? Our Lighthouse like already is run in the background, and actually it scanned our like a site structure against the web content accessibility guidelines. It's one of the most like a global standard for digital accessibility. So in general, like 84% out of 100, it's like a not perfect, but in general, it's like a good result, but still important to see what improvements should be made here and where we should like take pay attention, to which areas we should like pay attention. So you see like we have here like the ARIA, and you see that the main thing is which is marked is in general what we should like check manually. It's some like dynamic components like some models and some like buttons in different like social medias. Another area is our like names and labels for like a different attributes, and also like a contrast. So what we should do is just a second. Yeah. So we should like analyze it, and we can use it. And just to understand that our like Lighthouse is working just like for analyzing our general accessibility for just like 20-30%, and the real like world accessibility issues. But the most of the things should be checked like manually, and we should like do like our manual testing. So for doing like a manual testing, I will switch to the same like a website, and I will use like for that like on my keyboard. For example, I will use like a tab, and with a tab I can go through the different sections. For example, if I will highlight it here, just a second. Okay, you can see that I can scroll down and go through the different things. For example, if I will tap here, and you see like we have here like a focus ring which appearing around like the active elements. This is like our visual guide, so it will shows us where we are and navigates us. Also in scope of that, we can use like not just like our tab and keyboard, but also we can use like a voiceover. So in general, like a voiceover is some application which could be set up directly on your desktop. For like in my case, it's like a voiceover in my Mac, in my iMac. And you can use it like for the people like who has like some disabilities of like reading the text. And when you use this voiceover, it helps you to read what is actually on your screen. So what I want like to say as a summary. So it's necessary like to use not just like automation tool sets, but also like to verify it manually. So the most like a powerful thing is to have like some hybrid approach in the accessibility. For the first, it's better like to start with some automation things, just like to see where we need like to focus and what we need like to check by ourselves like manually. And then like to use this all the things and analyze as end, and to have like the proper audit. So basically like that's all like from my side. I will like turn off my screen sharing. Stop. Okay.
By the way, Olesa, that's good that you mentioned the lighthouse is the general tool, and it doesn't provide the compliance according to some technical framework like the WCAG 2.1 or 2.2. Just have some general aspects that are tested, and by the way, we have the comment here asking whether what are the different types of levels of accessibility assessment that the organization should be aware of, and that's a great question. So it really depends on the multiple aspects, starting from the compliance accordance, like which one technical framework should be selected, which level of the complexity of the accessibility should be validated, um, and also it's depending on the targets, scope, and urgency that we are selecting. That's back to the topic that Anton discussed a lot, and it's backs to the manual validation, automated validation, and also whether we want to engage the external vendor and whether we need to do that. So within the different levels, so it's first of all the different frameworks of the versions of the framework for the WCAG, depending on the compliance level we are targeting for, and different number of A's, let's say, near the framework. It's also brings the complexity about how detailed the description should be, whether the voiceover should be implemented or not, and so on and so forth. So there are plenty of them, but they are really tightly depending on the targets we are selecting. Maybe guys, you have anything to add to this question?
Yeah, I can add that if you selected adding accessibility as the goal to onboard a new market and new cohort, then in this case, it would be great to have the validation from the people from that cohort and to involve some potential users as part of the testing, or people that need specific accessibility requirements, and to go through the website with that people and just observe how they navigate and what are the issues. So it's the final stage of validation, but it's essential to reach the market.
Yeah, probably this the most edge target, the most complicated target that might be selected, starting from the quick assessment with the automation tool set, then in the middle with the hybrid assessment with the defined scope and targets, and also like having the full audit with the auditor, and also with the engagement of the people with the disabilities, or like the target users. Great. Thank you for the question, Anna. Thank you, colleagues. Let's then move forward to our final section of today's webinar.
Here we gathered key tips and tricks that we think that would help greatly if you are going into accessibility projects. They are high level, but they should help, and most of them was added based on some specific business case or business issues that we had on the project. So to start with, probably the main thing you need to start doing something. Just not to wait, not to plan for a long time, but start assessing the accessibility. There are plenty of different, even free tools for validation, and they will provide where you are now and will help with the further planning. And also here you will see what are the key issues, and probably that you will fix most of the issue without specific and complicated changes. This is something that they might reveal. The next thing is to review accessibility training. I would suggest to look into some training and aggregated information, because there are a lot of documents on WCAG requirements, a lot of cases, a lot of recommendation. and it's hard to read that all. So the trainings probably will be focused on the most common issues, and they would help to resolve 80% of the issue. The next point is to focus on the most common issues or fix the blocks or elements that appears on most of the pages. So a lot of sites, and even Olesya that's shown during the demo, this social media buttons, which are usually added into the footer, and they affect accessibility of every page of the website. And this is usually something that is not very complicated to fix. The next point, I started just saying that start doing something, but while starting doing, not to underestimate the accessibility complexity. Because the first thing I would suggest to involve a UX UI expert at the beginning, and it would be great to involve the person on leading position who will oversee all the websites, all the components, because components usually used across different sites, and that person should have a top view of all the systems and all the websites needed for accessibility. The next thing to understand how you are going to test it and validate it, and this will be depicted in the testing plan. And the next thing, not to try to fix accessibility everywhere. Start with the specific user flows with the specific pages, but I would suggest not to just have the set of most visited pages. I would suggest to prioritize the user journey, user flow, and start with these core flows. So check how the users will go from awareness to the specific order or purchase on the site.
In regards to the not underestimating, so here we're trying to find a balance, and about the testing plan. Alessa, maybe you can advise from your experience. Is it really needed? Is it required to have a testing plan for the accessibility improvements?
Yeah, so like it's actually necessary to have like a testing plan, not just like for accessibility, but in general to have it, but in accordance to accessibility testing plan. So it's I can say it's like some structured approach that we need like to ensure that our website or like our application is like usable for all users. Including those users who has like some diverse abilities. And what we should like do, we should include like in our testing plan what we should like test, how we should test, when and by whom it should be done.
Does it also contains like the definition of done or definition of ready? I mean, like, okay, also there is a part that the accessibility validation was passed within this or that feature.
Yeah, so like in most cases we have like an expected result at the end, what we should like see, and we also like need to pay attention that actually we need like to ensure that our like compliance are like with international standards, like for example this WCAG. It's necessary for us.
Got it. Thank you.
And yeah, we switch from the testing plan. About testing plan, there I would suggest also to understand at which environments the test, which validation is going to be. So in my case, it was on dev by add-on, and the validation by auditor was on production, which will not probably work for most of the companies, but it was the case, and it worked great, I would say. The next thing is to, as I already mentioned, accessibility is a complex topic. And here are the tips how to optimize this implementation to understand, to streamline the process. So the first one, we already mentioned it different time. There is a trade-off between details and speed. So here you should be very clear for yourself and for the whole team. What is the priority? Do you have a specific milestone? Or would you like to onboard new market and have time for great text, great translation, and a lot of details? Because there is always a trade-off. The next thing is when you will see a lot of findings of accessibility issues, there are probably two streams. One stream is to add specific text to specific elements, and another thing is relevant, for example, to focus to specific components, and that part should be fixed on components level. And working with components usually add additional complexity because these components used everywhere and sometimes in different projects. So it's one of the starting point to analyze these components and to plan how they will be updated, whether they are going to update it only on one website and on other places they will not be updated, or the accessibility will affect all the project. Another thing that we probably was an issue for our project, we had mobile engineers ready to start, but they waited for findings from the audit. And we lose about 3 weeks during that wait time. And when we get the findings, we understood that most of the findings for mobile are relevant to the findings on the web. They are similar findings on the alternative text, on the contrast, on the colors, on the focus. So don't wait for the specific auditor findings for mobile. Just check what you have on the web and check whether it's applicable for mobile and should be fixed on mobile. And another step is to ensure that while you are fixing the issues, new issues will not appear. So to do that, you need to incorporate all the accessibility framework and processes into the usual development. So first thing is to onboard and train all the teams that working on this website to consider accessibility findings, issues, and developing new functionality with understanding of accessibility standards. Another thing that should help a lot is actually the validation, so that every team will know that they created some new accessibility issues and findings if it will be incorporated into standard CI/CD code. And this means that actually all the pull requests before going to production will be checked on the accessibility.
Sorry, I have a question here to Andrei. Andrei, could you please tell us from the development perspective, actually how accessibility checks are integrated into our CI/CD pipeline?
Yeah, so for instance, you have the basic static code analysis toolset like the SonarQube, which is one of the most popular and probably the one that also Anton used within the product he was owning. And there is also the possibility to embed the general accessibility checks within the static code analysis. So it means each time you have the new pull request or any change within the code, your system goes through the static code analysis and verifies whether the crucial gaps within the accessibility If they are, you may also put down the quality gates that you're not allowed to merge this code into the general code base without having them fixed. But besides that, so we also what we are proposing as a good approach is also to have the basic optimization tests, which are not complicated to add, using the playwright framework. So then besides the static code analysis, also have the standardized test for the accessibility within your website and the main flows of yours. All right. And by the way, Anton, in regards to the onboarding and training the team, I think that also the good approach is to have one team already trained and onboarded. For instance, like ours, like the approach that we had, the team that was engaged within the development already had the good experience within the accessibility, and it's easier to spread the knowledge in a such way across the other teams if they are engaged as well into the client-side development process.
Yeah, it makes complete sense to start with one team who is working on accessibility and focuses on that topic and share this knowledge across other teams. So there will be a little delay between the main team that are working on accessibility and them providing knowledge to other team, because they will review the trainings, they will tell what trainings make sense and provide great insights, what not. Also, as part of CI/CD, it would be great that one team set up all that processes and pipelines in the development practices, and then spread it across different teams. And also, what we had even this audit specific tool that provided not only quick scans and provided way for monitoring. And usually monitoring is set up like a user flow, and it takes effort to set up it because you need to select elements, to make an action on element, to go through other pages, to fill in some information before you can go. And setting that up takes time for people to understand how to work with the tool, and then also how to implement it on other projects. So there should be some teams that working ahead and other teams that can get knowledge from that team. And it's better to experiment practices on one team rather than on 10 teams trying to do it similar.
Yeah, for sure. It's better. It's better than they engage people who already had experience with that in past. So then you can, ask the question, understand, okay, what were the pitfalls during the development process and the, onboarding for the accessibility, so it could be easily replicated further down the road. All right. Right. So we have like Let's Connect section here and a Q&A part merged together. We see that there are no more questions within the comment section in a StreamYard. We will wait for 1 minute. Maybe there would be any additional questions.
Yeah. Oh, while we're waiting for the question, let's discuss one topic which is probably specific to accessibility project. What I found out that it's hard to estimate the whole scope of the accessibility issues and to plan the works on it, because actually to understand what is an issue and how and estimate time needed to fix it, usually almost the same as to fix it for a lot of issues, because there are a lot of simple but repeatable issues. And that's why there are different practices how to track the progress. So on our project, we track the progress by monitoring the pages looking for number of critical issues, and when running the monitoring, we've seen that number of critical issues goes down, and we, based on that, we extrapolate and understood how quick we are going and whether we are on time or not.
Yeah, that's a good one. And probably also the approach to time box the accessibility improvements is really good. For instance, to prioritize the scope, time box the improvements, provide the team that's going to work on them. That's also the good approach, because most likely you'll end up covering 90 to 95% of the issues within the frame that we will, ballpark on the beginning. By the way, we also have the additional question here in the chat. When might a high-level audit be sufficient, and when is a more in-depth analysis required? The great question. Thank you, Daniel. Yeah, that is for the high-level audit. We name it assessment in purpose, not to mess up, these two words. Nevertheless, so the high-level review is really sufficient to have on the beginning of the journey when you have no idea, where we are right now. So then you have the baseline state defined, and these high-level audit or the assessments, whatever the name you will use, make complete sense to understand, to make this ballpark estimate, to make this time box for your improvements, and also to have the understanding what is the technical state of your system, and to understand what, or if any of these tips, for instance, that were discussed during this session are relevant, like the shared components. What is the state of your CI/CD processes? What could be automated? What would be your strategy in end of the day? And that's the this high-level approach is really sufficient to have this plan defined, to have the good vision in regards to the ballpark estimate, and so on and so forth. And in-depth analysis, it's something that you will go down the road once you start the implementation anyway. And in case your target is actually to be compliant with certain standards within the legal part, and you really want to engage, to have some certificate done, then most likely you are about to engage the independent auditor who are specified within the accessibility audit to support your technical team with that and make these in-depth analysis. Right, so you have different strategies to move with that, but most likely the common approach would be start with the high level on the beginning, then understand where you are in terms of the in the middle of these improvements. If the technical level that you're having at that stage would be enough, and you see that you have positive tendency of the improvements, then you might decide whether you go with additional auditor and in-depth analysis, or you're good enough to proceed with the state you will have at that point in time. Colleagues, in case you have anything to add about that one, please go ahead.
It depends also on the purpose of your website or specific of website. If it's governmental website, then there should be more rigorous compliance, and in that case it should be in-depth analysis. Also, if you would like to target specific people or get a more audience, improving the accessibility, then also it's needed in-depth analysis, because it should be done more thoroughly and almost ideal to get a new market niche.
Yep, thank you. Makes sense. Great questions, colleagues. Yeah, I think not that many questions, because we did a good job explaining the whole journey here. We have 5 minutes left anyway, so in case any new questions appear, we are happy to answer them. Meanwhile, what I'd also add, for those of you colleagues that registered for the participation, Julian Novak will share with you the presentation and the recording of this webinar. So you'll have anyway the chance to review it in case you didn't manage to be here at the time. So no worries. Or in case you've managed but you are late, no worries. You will have your recording and a presentation in your box in LinkedIn. Right, great. I think we are done for today. Big thanks to Anton, Olesa. I know that it was hard to find time for this webinar, but you have lots of work. Thank you a lot for joining us. Thank you, colleagues who viewed this recording, live stream, presentation, whatever it is. In case you have any additional questions, please reach out to us within the LinkedIn. We're happy to support you with your journey of the accessibility. And yeah, see you soon.
See you. Thank you.
Thank you, guys.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.